Okay, and now we're live on YouTube and Facebook as well. Hi, y'all. Happy Thursday. Welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk about three things that are holding you back in love addiction. Let me go ahead and pin this so that people can know what we're talking about. Let me know that y'all are here in the chat. Hi, Brooke. Hello, hello. Okay, so why are we talking about this today? Hi, Biker Montfleur. Welcome, welcome. So, why are we talking about three things that hold you back in love addiction? So, once you're aware of what love addiction is, which is a persistent obsession with a person, a relationship, or the fantasy of that person or relationship and what you would hope that they could be, what's possible, the potential, and being very over attached to that and addicted to making that be real and trying to get all of the positive moments that have happened before to like stay, but like losing control, not really, like all the common sense, all of the wisdom that you typically have is gone. Like that is what we find when we are working with love addiction. So once we find out what love addiction is, most people are like, this is what I've been struggling with. This is why I can't let people go. This is why my codependency feels like it's on level 10. Like I meet people who are codependent all the time, but it feels like for me, like it's like extra hard to work through it. Let me get so you don't see my cell phone stand on Facebook and YouTube. But yeah, so you're like really motivated, but you can hit these roadblocks. Like it can feel like, okay, now I know what it is. Now I know that I'm substituting. I'm trying to use a person to heal something inside of me. I'm trying to use a relationship to soothe something. Like that should be enough. Like that plus the work that I'm doing with my therapist. That plus the inner child work that I'm doing. That plus everything else should be enough for me to break cycles. However, what can end up happening is you're doing all these really amazing things, but there's still a person, a relationship, or a fantasy that you can't let go, that you can't get out of your head. And so, what I want to talk about today is the three things that will be holding you back in that. Okay, so if that's something that y'all are interested in hearing about, go ahead and put a heart in the chat. Let me know that we can go ahead and get started. Put a heart or a number one. We're going to talk about three things, like I said before. And while I'm waiting for y'all to tell me, my name is Sheena Lachey. I'm the founder of Black Girls Heal. I am a former licensed professional counselor, professional therapist, and I did that for over 12 years. And I transitioned into coaching and teaching about love addiction, love avoidance, and love deprivation here. My specialty has been trauma. My specialty has been relationships. My specialty has been helping people heal and end addictive cycles. And now I do this in the coaching space. So what that means is going outside of therapy, I'm able to teach you more practical skills and tools to help you move forward. And so that is what I do here. And I help women heal those symptoms and also the trauma that causes it is putting it all together. So, okay, I am so happy. Hi, Isha. Hello, hello. Okay, number one, the first thing that may be holding you back when it comes to working through love addiction symptoms and love addiction patterns is staying connected to trauma bonded relationships. Now, that might be an obvious one. That might be like, well, duh. But I think for those of us who are in the throes of love addictive relationships, as much as it's obvious, usually the reason why that is a roadblock is because we're still trying to negotiate it with. We're still trying to negotiate with it. So there's a person, whether or not it's a family member. The thing about love addiction is love addiction doesn't always have to be with romantic relationships. It can be. It can be with a situationship. It can be with an ex. It can be with a crush from afar, someone who's unavailable to you. That's the thing about this intense connection. The intense connection in itself is not bad. Love feels good. Love is what like enraptures us. We're supposed to fall, and when we fall, we're supposed to fall like deeply and seriously, right? But it's when we fall for people who are not good for us. Is when we fall for people who are showing red flags or orange flags or pink flags, or the flags that they are showing aren't even on our radar. They are things that to us seem normal, and we stay there and we try to make it work. And so that is what happens with love addictive relationships. Definitely a crush gone wrong, says Biker Muffler. Yeah, absolutely. Like thinking that we are in control. We have um, what is it, our faculties, is that the right word? We have like, we are capable to like find balance, but something slips. So with this point, this first point of staying connected to trauma bonded relationships, we can think, okay, I know what this is. I know that this is me over connecting. I know that this is me being an addictive cycle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just be mindful of this relationship. I know that these are red flags now. I know that this is a person that isn't healthy for me. So I'm just going to like assert my boundaries, and I'm not going to pay them any mind. And I'm just going to focus on me. Meanwhile, they still have full access to you. They still have access to reach out to you when they want to. They still even have access to you mentally in your mind. You know, one of the things, I did our no contact support group a month ago now. Um, yeah, I think it ended. Yeah, it ended a month ago now, almost a month ago now. And one of the things that I was telling the ladies within is, because some of them were like, well, I'm not talking to this person. You know, I haven't talked to them in X amount of time, but I still feel so sad, and I still feel so stuck, and I still feel so, you know, I'm not able to move on. And I'm wondering, when am I going to finally start to feel happy? When am I actually going to get to a place where this actually starts to get better? You know, because I'm doing all the things, I'm doing my morning routine, I'm da 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 da. But and when I was asking them the things that they were doing during that time, um, or even when they were talking about in their description, they would talk about, they say, I would spend all day like thinking about them. And at night, you know, when I lay down to sleep, I'm still like thinking about the relationship, and I'm replaying things. And someone can still have control over you or have a big influence in your life if you're constantly feeding and ruminating thoughts about them. So here's the thing about thoughts. There's a phrase that goes, you can't stop birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair. So that's what it is when it comes to addictive and compulsive thoughts. Like, it's not like, oh man, I thought about them, and oh, I'm like, I can't, that means like I'm always going to be stuck. Like, that's a really unreasonable and impossible standard to hold yourself to, which I think also happens a lot when it comes to love addiction. People go into black and white mode, like either I have to not care about them at all, right? Like, I try to get to a place where I hate them. And if I hate them, then that means that I can finally let go. And that never works. Hate is not the opposite of love. Hate is just love flipped on the side. Intensity, any type of emotion, that especially hate has the same type of intensity and connection as love, which is why, you know, sometimes fights can be the best foreplay. That's why we have the enemies to lovers trope. That's why we have people, you know, who hate each other, and finally, and then they like have like a conversation, and they find that there's actually some heat underneath that, and they convert the heat. So hating someone doesn't stop that from connecting. Let me know if that makes sense. Let me know if this is making sense so far. So you trying to hate someone and like trying to cut them off in your head, is still you putting a lot of effort and attention into the relationship. And then you having the impossible standard of, well, I'm not even going to think about that. I'm going to distract myself. If this is someone that you have been in love with, that you have taken care of, if this is like a familial relationship, if this is a toxic friendship, trauma bonded friendship that has like kind of changed on its head, there's no way that someone could be in your life and have a part of your soul, and you give, like y'all are like mutually giving, and they're a part of your life, and like part of chapters of your life even, and you just never think about them anymore. You're setting yourself up for disappointment. And so when you do that, that means when you actually do have thoughts about them and thoughts about what's happening, it's easy for you to just be like, well, let me just give in. Let me just think about them. Like, let me just like replay that last fight that we had. So, because if I replay it, then maybe I can like get off my chest what I should have said before, or maybe I can like remember what their face looked like in the moonlight. Maybe I can replay the makeup sex afterwards. Maybe I can do whatever, right, um, to try to like be connected to them again. And so going back to that example of, you know, you can't stop the birds from flying over your head, but you can stop them from making a nest in your hair. If or when you have these thoughts of remembrance, it's up to you to not nurture it, to not feed it, to not grow it, right? To not give into the obsession, because that person can have a whole other life, have a whole other relationship. If they're a narcissist, you could be like ruminating over what happened, if it's a narcissistic parent or whoever, and you could be replaying conversations and they have completely moved on, right? Like they're not even studying what happened. And you're the one who's in pain and turmoil. And also, a lot of times with that fantasy too, when we're like nurturing or replaying like the good times, sometimes what's really common for us as love addicts is to be like, well, I know if I'm in pain, I know they're really missing me. Like kind of like the way that we soothe ourselves is like, well, if I'm like replaying this, like I bet they're like missing what a good woman I am and missing like the times we had together. And I know there's no one who could like do it like me or that didn't love them as much as I did. And like that is a fantasy that we will like feed into, right? Meanwhile, this person ain't studying you. And sometimes when I say that really directly because if I do like this kind of like tentative, um, well maybe they've moved on. Like it doesn't hit us. Like we need to hear sometimes that the person or people or situations that we have over attached to are unavailable to us, and they're unavailable to us for a reason. That all of the red flags that have been happening and that have been on our radar, we need to pay attention to it and see the reality of it, and see what that actually means. Okay, you're saying this makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Awesome. Yep, that's me. Okay. So, as always, I didn't say this at the beginning. If you have any questions or thoughts about what I'm sharing, if what I'm saying is connecting to you, if there's like a special situation related to any of the points, excuse me, any of the points that I'm hitting on that comes to mind for you, go ahead and put in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions, either in the chat or in the question box if you're on Instagram, or in the chat on Facebook or YouTube. So we are talking about, for those who are joining us, we're talking about 3 things that are holding you back in love addiction, 3 things that are stopping you from moving forward. The first one that I shared was that you're staying connected to trauma bonded relationships, that you're trying to have one foot in and one foot out. You're trying to say, okay, we can't be together, but we can be friends. Or we can't be friends, but I'm not going to cut you off. Or, um, you know, I'm only going to go around you certain periods of time, but not all the time. Right. Toya said, wow, I needed you like a year ago. I was a mess. Well, I am so happy that you're here now. And I'm so happy. I don't know if that means that you're not currently a mess anymore or that you've worked through it. But even, sometimes when I come across teachers and coaches and healers, what they give me by working with them or by learning from them, either way, is self forgiveness, because a lot of times the pain of love addiction is looking back at things that you should have known, like the should have, like I should have known better, or I should have like cut that off before, or I should have stood up for myself, or I just got played in front of all these people, like my friends saw, my family saw, or I gave this person all this money, this was supposed to be my friend, and like things just went downhill, and we can like really beat up on ourselves. And so sometimes finding things out later on is also good, because we're learning about it when our hearts are actually open for it. Like if we would have learned about it when it was actually going on, we might have dismissed it, or said, well, that I'm gonna take a little bit of this, but I'm not gonna take all of it. Like our hearts needed to be primed for it. Okay. So, number 2, who is ready for number 2, the second thing that is holding you back when you're trying to work through love addiction, trying to get through having these obsessive relationships with other people, losing your sense of self, constantly being attracted to unavailable relationships, whether or not it is friends who are not really friends, or whether or not it is lovers who don't show up for you in the way that you want to show up for them, whether or not it's toxic family members that you're constantly trying to like make things better, you're trying to appease them, you're trying to you're on your healing journey and you want them to be on on their healing journey too, and you're really trying to like get this to be better, but you are getting stuck in it. Okay. Let me know if you're ready. Go ahead and put a 2 or a heart. And I see some hearts already. Parker says, I knew better, but I just walked into it and then beat myself up for it. Yeah, you know, that's why I always say, and y'all hear me say, and I hopefully the more I teach this, the more you realize that I'm not just like saying it, that logically knowing things and logically having an understanding, knowing that something's coming from trauma, knowing that this is addictive thing, the logic and the thinking doesn't stop you from breaking the patterns. Like if that was enough, I wouldn't be here. I would be teaching Pilates on a beach somewhere. Like literally, I, honestly, y'all have heard me. If you've been following me for a while, you've heard me. That's always my example, which tells me like when I'm 50 or something years old, I'm gonna be on somebody's beach teaching Pilates. So get this while you can. But yeah, we think like if it was just about us logically knowing, we would everybody would stop. There is an active untangling that needs to happen. There is an active after the untangling, and then you got to dig it out. And then after you dig it out, you got to replace it with new things. And then with you replacing it, you got to practice like the new skills and not only just the thinking, but connecting to people. And then with every level of you going like higher and higher in your elevation, deeper and deeper, I'm going this way because like to me it's like an abundant experience. But the higher you go into your self confidence, so the higher you're going into love with people, there's a new challenge for you at every different level. There is a challenge of, especially if you're coming from a place of like deprivation or emotional neglect or something growing up or abuse or trauma, there is a wall of, do I deserve this? There's a wall of, can I trust this? And so, this is a beautiful experience, but then that trauma still hits, right? So you still got to use skills and you still need support to get there. And then after you get there, then it's like, okay, now I have to learn how to receive. And then once you learn how to receive, then the next level might be you actually trying to communicate. So now I found my soulmate, the person who I love the most, like we're finishing each other's sentences. They should know what's going on with me. And now you got to learn how to communicate. Like you had all these communication skills that you learned good getting up to meeting them, right? That has benefited the relationship. And now the deeper you get into a relationship, there's still more for you to learn, right? And so um, we're constantly going to need access to teachers, to people, to resources, to community, to accountability, to healers to help us at each of those stages. And that's okay. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're actually like moving forward. Like sometimes people will be like, well, I hit this roadblock, that means there's something wrong, or like all the progress that I made doesn't really mean anything. That's not true at all, at all. It means that, like I was saying in our live earlier this week, you can only see as far as your own perspective. And sometimes you don't have access to skills because it wasn't something that someone taught you and someone gave you. And when it comes to working through things like love addiction and love avoidance and all that stuff, a lot of times those things are like, they feel like 911 crisis emergencies, like especially with the way that our trauma is set up. Um, like you need support like in that moment to help you. Otherwise, like you can feel very lost. So, which is why, coaching is something that I really love to do for folks. Okay. So, welcome to everyone who's joining us. We're going to talk about our second one. So, we're talking about three things that are holding you back in love addiction. So, the first one was staying attached to trauma bonded relationships. The second one is what was it? I didn't write it down this time. I was just going to go off the dome. So now I know. Don't do that, ADHD lady. To write it down. It is trying to attribute your own grace and humanity for yourself, for other people. And I said that in a different way when I had it in my mind earlier, but I'm going to say it again and I'm going to talk it out so that it makes sense. So, trying to give your grace that you give to yourself too much to other people. So, what do I mean by that? As you do your healing process and you build your self awareness, you learn, wow, there are all these places in me and in my self esteem and in my self love that I didn't have access to, and I have it, and that feels great. And at the same time, you find out, wow, there are all these areas of growth and all these areas that have been very hard for me. And like, there are mistakes that I've made and like ways that I've been imperfect. And maybe there might be things that like you were so sure that that's like you were right. And now, as part of your healing process, you're like, maybe I wasn't right. Maybe there's amends that you need to make or that you're going to do some self forgiveness, whatever. But either way, you start to practice more grace towards yourself and you start to practice more self forgiveness, right? So a mistake that can and does happen is, love addicts are the most compassionate and generous people in the world. Even if you have like an exterior shell that is like pretty avoidant or hard or stoic, you are usually one of the most empathic people. You're usually the one of the softest people. Like when you love hard, right? And so you are more willing to give people chances. And being compassionate and being gracious and being loving is a gift. It is not a weakness. It is not like, I think a lot of times when people are healing from codependency, they're like, oh man, like I'm too much of like a wimp. I got to be stronger. I have to like be mean. And no, that is a superpower that you have. It is who you give your superpower to, which is the issue. It's your discernment. It is your desire to try to fix things and fix people who don't want to be fixed. It's you looking at a situation that has all these mines and everything like in the ground, and you're like, let me go and play there. let me go and, let me go and play hopscotch in this minefield, right? Like that's the issue, not the fact that you're kind and compassionate. So what happens is, as a love addict, if this is an issue that you haven't worked on your discernment, your magnet, your meter, whatever it is that you may call it, you will meet people who are showing signs that they cannot show up for you in the way that you want them to, and you will say things like, "Well, not everybody's perfect. Everybody has something that they're going through. I don't want to be mean or judgmental. I went through that too. I had to learn how to not do that too. It's okay. Like, maybe we can't actually be something, but, I'm not going to like be rude or anything. Like, they're still funny. Like, we can still chill together, whatever." And you will try to give, or you will give this grace that you give yourself to someone who is showing predator vibes. And, I'm going to stick with the word predator instead of giving an alternative, because I think sometimes the people that we will connect to are obvious predators. So, like, obviously abusive, obviously narcissistic or whatever. And sometimes they are normal people like us who have their own attachment and trauma issues, and we will see that because they are a normal person, we will misdiagnose them as being harmless. We will misdiagnose and say that our connection to them isn't really that big of a deal because they're not like a wolf, right? Like they're just a regular person. However, what happens is, what you're misdiagnosing is the ways that they will trigger and harm you, the ways that they will use you, the ways that they will neglect you, the ways that they will deceive you, the ways that they will manipulate you. Though all those, the impact of all those things will feel predatory to you. It is dangerous to you. It is dangerous to you emotionally, mentally, sexually, spiritually, financially, right? And so you will find yourself, and then especially being someone who struggles with love addiction and this over attachment, you will over attach to someone, and then it's like it's like a combination of all these things, like you having to learn how to use your voice and say what you need and not feel like you're asking for too much, and not gaslighting yourself that like maybe I'm being too needy, or seeing like the breadcrumbs of the actions that they're giving you and saying, well, I see that they're trying, when meanwhile this person like finally after you had a conversation with them, or you threatened to leave, or you stopped talking to them, they gave you this much when really they should have been giving you this much in the relationship, right? And so you're like, oh great, they're right here, when they are like miles away from the standard that they should have been at the first place. Like this is baseline. That's also the thing about people who struggle with love addiction, is like your baseline is so low. Like when your friends or your family members or your therapist or your coach or someone is like, this is what you should be receiving, to us we're like it's like this is the level, like this is the base, like this isn't even extra. But for you, you're like, man, like, yeah, you're right, like they should be calling me back, or they should be paying me back, or they should be initiating conversations with me. But like, wow, like it like blows your mind to even consider, imagine this person doing it, because it feels so impossible. And it feels so impossible because it's a person who's not capable of doing it. They're not capable of doing it, they're not willing to do it. And so you again are staying attached, attracted to people who are unable to show up for you and you're trying to make it work. Okay, I'm gonna pause there because I said a whole lot. What are y'all thinking? Where are y'all with what I'm saying so far? Biker says all of that. Oh Maya, hey girl. You said Sheena is such a comfort zone. Oh, you're so sweet. Biker says predator is a good word. That's what my crush is, and I needed to hear that. Yeah, yep, yep. You know, something that happens and something that, happens too with the students that I work with, which by the way that I help women is in my program called the Recovery School. I've been teaching this program or variations of this program for the last 5 or 6 years. And, I've helped women finally get out of narcissistic relationships. I've helped people make amends with people, like women who like adult women with adult children who have had broken relationships with children because of their own issues within. I've helped people get out of trauma bonded relationships they feel like they could never get rid of. I've helped people who their stress and their low self-esteem and their avoidance has gotten into their body, and they've been able to be healed from medical issues that were like from like lockjaw and stomach issues and stuff like that. Because the thing about healing from intimacy disorders is it's not just about the relationships. Every person gets into their healing journey for a reason, and there's different windows. When with me, the way I got into my healing journey, even when I was already a therapist, the way that I got in were two things: grief when my mom passed, and I was being very codependent as a parentified child, trying to take care of everybody else and neglecting myself, and it was making me low and depressed. And also, I had a very strong my romantic relationships were getting lower, and also, I had a porn addiction that was causing havoc. And like I was crossing more and more boundaries with that, all in efforts to self soothe. So that's why I got into therapy. That's why I got into my healing process. But the thing about all these intimacy disorders is it's not just a little pocket of your life that they touch. It, it's all interconnected. Your self esteem, the way that you connect to family, what you think you're worthy of, how you show up in your friendships, the things you go out for or don't go out for, the way your anger manifests or the way you repress your anger, all of that, right? And so, what I was about to say about windows is like some people enter their healing process because they struggle with depression. And so they seek someone to help them with depression, they seek someone to help them with anxiety. And then they realize, oh, wow, everything touches everything. Like it's like I have a dinner plate and everything is touching everything. And so that's why that's why I'm not surprised anymore when people come into my program, the recovery school, like looking to work on like love addiction or love avoidance, and they find literally their whole life changes because you change. You change, you feel more confident, you feel more self-secure, you start to learn how to trust yourself. You start to learn how to let in people who've always been there that you've been pushing away for years. You learn how to get in touch with your emotions. You learn how to express them in a different way. You learn how to figure out who's healthy and who's not healthy, and your magnet changes. So what I was going to say before you even started talking about that is something that has switched is before, when I would be in a room with someone who like had like that dangerous kind of energy and like that bad boy like energy, like it was like a turn on. It was like him. It was like I kind of like that, and I could like tell, I could feel it, like I could feel it. And now when I meet someone, it's not that that sensation has gone away, but the meaning behind it is different. Now, if I meet someone who has like that predator energy, like that dangerous, unavailable energy, I'm so turned off. I'm like, ew, like I'm repulsed. Like there's let me knock on some, let me be careful because anytime I say something very declarative, God is like, here's a test. But now anytime like someone, I'll say this for the video and not give 80 million disclaimers. Right now, anytime someone like comes in with that type of energy, I have no I have no temptation to take a trip down that road because I know what's up. It ain't worth it. It ain't fun. Don't matter how fine they are. It's cute for like a minute until the bullshit starts. And usually the bullshit starts within the first 5 or 10 minutes. Like I'm good, right? And so you change on the inside. So if that is something that you would like to work on outside of listening to the podcast, there are like 200 episodes, almost 200 episodes um, of the podcast so far, because I've taken some episodes off and like, that kind of thing. And I've restarted the podcast too. The videos here, all the stuff here, then if you would like to work together to know how to recognize these things within yourself and everything, therecoveryschool.com would love to work with you. You have lifetime access to me, to the program, to the materials, because this is a lifelong journey. Um, Omaya says, I love it. I think as a love addict, we can be so okay with the bare minimum. Yeah, we're so okay with the bare minimum because that's what we were given. That's what we were groomed to have. There's a better word than groomed because groom has all the connotation that it has, but um, it's the truth. We were given conditional love and conditional protection and conditional whatever. And so now, if you struggle with love addiction, when you get like pieces of the bare minimum, not even the bare minimum, it's like crazy. And then when someone is giving you the bare minimum, here's the wild thing about it. Um, when someone tries to give you the bare minimum, you're not attracted to them at the very beginning. Those are the people who are like corny. Those are the people who you may feel like, okay, something's off. Or, you're trying to test them to see if they're actually a nice person. And like when they move away because they're healthy and they have boundaries, you're like, see, I knew that this was like that they were on some different time. Like I knew that they weren't really gonna like stay around, but meanwhile it's you pushing away like all of that stuff. Yeah. We were conditioned to appreciate the bare minimum, but not even the bare minimum. Like the bare minimum is like, Oprah's giving you a car. Like it's like you won the lottery. So if you meet someone who is like a nice person, like okay, you meet someone, if this is when you're still like in your process, and you meet someone who is cute, they have a nice job, like they're charming or whatever, and then you start to talk to them and like y'all have like good vibes and everything, but like maybe they aren't as quick to ask you out on a date. Like they're good with like keeping you on the phone, but because they're showing like all like these like really nice things, like you're like, okay, like he's gonna ask me out, like I'm just gonna wait, I'm gonna be chill, I'm gonna be cool, I'm gonna be whatever, until you start to get frustrated with it. And what you should be able to pick up, if bare minimum was your actual standard, bare minimum is a man being clear with his intentions. Bare minimum is a man being direct with you and having clear communication. Bare minimum is a man respecting your heart because he understands how a woman falls in love. But because bare minimum is not your standard, you will let someone waste your time. You will let someone get you all emotionally connected and in love and like holding out instead of realizing that my time, my space, my energy, even just to kiki with me because I'm a queen. Like, what are you on? Like, what is this for? And I think you know, as much and we can like rationalize it and we can justify it and be like, well, I'm busy too, and you shouldn't rush into relationships, and I don't really need anyone, but there's like certain standards. There's certain standards that will show you the way that it starts is going to show you how it continues to progress. And so you have someone who is going to, you know, keep you on the phone and call you and hang out with you when it's convenient for him, and when he has, the time or the money, if you're not one of the women who are like, well, I can pay for myself because you don't know how to receive, like it's okay for someone to pay for you. And that's such a big trigger for so many of us because we feel like we feel like if someone does that for us, that means we owe them something. And what kind of traumatic stuff, I was about to cuss, I'm going to choose not to cuss for that one. What type of trauma have we gone through where we are so not used to someone giving to us just because it gives them pleasure, just because they want to see us happy. We've not had that experience. I believe and I know that many of us, that is a trigger for us because people have wanted things from us. We have owed them. It has been used against us. It has been used as a source of abuse and then hanging over our head. that absolutely, like, it's not something, I want to be clear that I'm not saying that's something that you have imagined, that that's actually happened. What what I'm proposing to you is that I would love for you to be able to shift and have a different energy, or have a different community energy, where it is normal for people to gift to you just because. And so it's not a fear. It's not like, okay, this good thing is coming, what's going to happen now? What are they going to want sex from me? Are they going to, like, is this a favor that I'm going to have to pay back? But you live in a world where it's just love. Because usually, I mean, all the women that I work with, let me just say this, all the women that I work with are the most generous people ever. They are the best friends to people. They're the best sisters to people. They're the best lovers and partners to people. They will give you anything. They will give you the shirt off their back, right? They're going to show up for you and take care of themselves. But they can't find, or they haven't been able to find people who will do the same for them. Or they have had friends. This is so much part of the work that I do with women too, is, we're looking around like who's available friends for them. And they're going down their friend roster, and they have the most amazing women who are already in their circle. Women who are already trying to check up on them, women who like want to give to them, women who are like, hey girl, let me know when you need anything. But because of the trauma that they've gone through, their lack of self-trust, the betrayal that has happened to them, they are so afraid to let these people in. They are so afraid to receive. I have one client who, like, literally, there was a whole session around receiving a gift for like a clearly celebratory time in her life, like the time in your life that people are supposed to give you gifts. And she was like, I need to give it back to her. Like, I need to give it, like she doesn't, like, she's not at a financial place. Like, I don't want her to give me a gift. Like, and what if she feels like I owe her? Like, literally, and so that is so much part of the trauma that we have to unlearn, so that the bare minimum is actually the bare minimum. That is not like people are giving us crumbs and we're like, oh, like, if he started to actually call me and ask me to be his girlfriend and claim me around other people and like plan dates and do all this stuff, that would be awesome. But like, we're living right here, instead of like, that's what he should be doing. That's what every man that takes you out, if you're someone who dates men, that's what every man who takes you out should be doing. And then where you go from there is like, do I actually like this man? Like, it's not like, that's why it can be very tempting to one of the first or second people who starts to actually treat us kind of nice, we attach. We're like, ooh, this is different. Like, this must be love. When really, this is someone who's treating you with the basic decency and respect that people should have been treating you with in the first place. Yeah. That was a whole tangent. I know there's other comments that I have not seen. Hold on. I was trying to get to a Beyonce concert. Now I have to budget to get you as a coach. I feel like it will take years off my life. Yes, I would love to work with you. And also, there's the extended payment plans. For those of y'all who have like wanted to be a part of the recovery school before, you checked out the investment and you're like, I don't know if I can do that. Or the payment plans weren't like small enough for you. Now there is a firm in Klarna, I think, that you can go and you can have an extended payment plan. I want to say those things stretch out for years. So you can go and use that, and hopefully that will be more in your budget. And I think I'm going to have to sign off soon because I'm losing light, and my ring light, I dropped it. I'm not sure if it works anymore. Actually, let me see. Let me try to turn this baby on and see. I popped like the little light like cover off. Eek. Let's see. Oh, okay. Well, one works. There's two of them. Okay, so I can stay a little bit. Winter says, I'm feeling discouraged. I worked so much on myself after a bad relationship. Then the next guy played me harder. My discernment may be off. Yes, yes, it is. Something that I should have had this light on the whole time. I had like a little bit of a glow and everything. Lesson learned. Okay, so on YouTube, I have more of a glow. Over here, I feel like it's like, but something that I will see that a lot of people will do is they will be like, okay, I know that this is a pattern. So they will try to do in their own mind, they'll be like, okay, this is my pattern. So they will try to do the complete opposite. And they were like, say, okay, let's say I go for people who are in suits. Now I'm gonna go for someone who's blue collar, right? Like I'm gonna get my Tyler Perry on. Like I'm gonna like not just someone from the outside and just know like a good, hardworking, honest person. And this is no shade because I know there are a lot of blue collar workers who do very well for themselves. But I'm just as part of the example. Um, I'm just gonna completely switch my type. Switch races, switch everything. And to your point, you get into the next relationship and the same things happen. It's because it's not about the external thing, it's about what your trauma pattern has um, attuned you to. Like what is now normal? Like what are the things that are not even on your radar that are red flags? Like, and that's also something that I see that like people don't I don't really meet women who actively get into destructive relationships because they crave it and they want it. They literally are really trying to do what looks best for them. They're really trying to put in the set of skills that they have access to. And so, um, the things that are clear to me that are red flags, the things that I'm like very like it's very obvious, like this is a sign that something is happening and that this person is not going to show up. They can't even see it, and even more so, it's not even that they can't see it. They don't quite. It's not. Is it that they don't believe me? It's that the level of threat for me is like red level, right? And for them, they're like maybe yellow, like maybe orange, like maybe it's like a blue purple level threat. And I'm like, no, this is like red level. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it to you that it's a threat, but it's not that big of a deal. And it takes like time working together for them to be like, oh, wait, this is like part of it, So yeah, your discernment may be off because there are some things that just aren't on your radar yet. How do you get turned off by it? Because it's attractive when I'm stressed. Oh, that's a great question. Okay, and then I'm gonna go over to because I saw a couple comments on YouTube that I like distracted by. But I will have to get off because I do have a group call for recovery school students tonight. So I have to get off in a little bit actually. Um, how do you get turned off by it because it's attractive when I'm stressed? So that's part of this is going to sound like a non-answer, but I promise you it's the truth. I promise you I'm not BSing you. And I say that because when people would say what I'm about to say, I would be like, be fucking for real. Like, like I'm doing that. It becomes less attractive by your own internal work, which I know sounds so abstract and so big and so frustrating, especially because you're here on a Thursday night listening to this. Like, of course, you're doing your own internal work. Of course, you're already doing it. So it can be very frustrating because it's like, what am I missing? But the reason why it's your internal work is because um, when your own self love increases, you stop letting people treat you like trash. So I don't know how many of y'all like the Cosby Show, watched the Cosby Show growing up, but there was one of the episodes when Vanessa brought home, I forget, Dabness. When she brought home Dabness, her husband, her fiance, whoever he was at the time. When she brought Dabness over, um, Bill Cosby or Cliff Huxtable, Cliff Huxtable gave an example, a metaphor about presentation. He said that the way that Vanessa introduced Dabness to the family was as if she had brought a whole steak dinner and put it on top of a garbage can lid, and then try to serve it to the family and say, "Isn't this great? Isn't this awesome? Like, you should love it as much as I love it." And what happens is we are steak, we are full course meals, we are like 7 course meals, and we are so valuable, but people are giving us trash can lid behavior. They're giving us trash can lid behavior. And instead of us like being like, ain't no way, we're like being polite and we're like, okay, like, all right. And we're like trying to see what they're going to do next instead of like being like, I'm not even touching that. I'm not even like letting like I am like worthy. And I think when we're trying to skip steps when it comes to our self development work, the reason why this doesn't hit sometimes is because we'll hear that and be like, okay, I gotta, stand up straight. I gotta love myself more. And we try to go like head down. We try to like think our ways to like love ourselves more down, but it doesn't connect to all the like the internal like trauma parts that are like disconnected and tangled up and everything. And so it doesn't actually last. It doesn't settle the way that it needs to. It doesn't hit all of the different parts. So we're doing the actions of self love. We're talking the talk of self love. We're recording TikToks about how much we love ourselves and like giving other people wisdom and advice, from things that we've learned from heartbreak. But as far as like the deep preciousness and the deep protection around our hearts and around our bodies and around our souls that comes when we realize what we are and whose we are, um, which is our own, um, that doesn't actually sit and settle. So the reason why that's so attracted to you when you're stressed is because there's a part of you that sees trash can behavior as an escape instead of danger, instead of disrespect, instead of dishonoring you. And that comes, and the only way that you work through that is not by shaming yourself and being like, okay, because that reflexive like thrill of it, I get what you're saying. Like I was like, man, I know that this is bad, but like it feels like good until like your gut, like you get warm inside, like your Miss Kitty, like she like, gets turned on, like it feels good when that energy is like over you and like, hovering, like when it's focused on you, it's intoxicating. It is intoxicating. Um, but something shifts as you do this work that doesn't happen when you're trying to think your way out of it. Something shifts to where it's not attractive anymore. Or best case scenario, but the worst case scenario that I've seen with the women that I worked with, um, even if it is attractive, like the thrill of it, like you can't like go dumb anymore. Like that's one of the things that women have told me is like when they actually start to date, and if they still do like kind of have attachment or attraction to like bad boy energy or thug energy is what somebody said. Um, um, like it's not like, oh, let me just see where this goes. Like it's like, damn, like I know what that is. There goes more games. Sheena said that this already happened before. Like you're aware, like your eyes are open, and so you can't even like get lost in the fantasy anymore. Like your eyes are fully awake from every single moment, every single trigger. So from there is a choice. It's an active choice for you to decide, okay, what is it that I want to do? What is bare minimum standard? I think I already answered that in one of the examples. I know I haven't been scanning the comments. I've just been over here talking. Micah says, right, no reciprocity. Yes, Sheen, I need a payment plan. Well, there are payment plans. There's a payment plan that I can do, which, I am limited in how long I can do that for because women come into my program and they get results like within the first 3 or 4 months if they're like actively involved in answering questions and following like steps and everything. So, I can't have like a 12-month payment plan because I'm there with you. I'm like working with you there. But this outside folks, they like front it for you and then you pay it off in your own time. So, yeah. Winter says, I understand. I'm in the same situation. Okay, I said I was going to go to YouTube. So, Hey You says, yeah, because people literally come back and use it against you. Do you think it comes from a lack of self worth or unhealthy attachment? Yeah, I know I just talked about that. So hopefully I answered that part of the question. If not, let me know if you have a follow up question. Um, hey, you says, I barely ask for help when I do get around to it. They literally don't. It's frustrating dealing with this every day for a very basic ask. And everyone has sidestepped my ass, affects my executive functioning. Executive functioning. Hello. Are you also a ADHD sister? Let me say this. I know you have more comments, but let me say this. So one of the books that I'm writing 2 books right now because I have ADHD. And I get bored. But I have like it's cool because I got the outlines for both. One is on no contact, but the other one is on unavailability. Every time I teach this stuff to y'all, I am like, I want people to have access to like a clear, like here's the checklist and here's the why. Like this is a sign of people being unavailable, and this is a sign of availability. For people to take and use in their personal relationships and assess it. So that's the book I've been working on this week, the availability book. And so hopefully that will be out soon. But the thought that I have when it comes to why you barely ask for help and the way ways people are showing up for you or not showing up for you is that the friends and community that you have around you are unavailable, and you keep trying to get things from people who cannot show up for you. So here's an example that sometimes I like to give. Let's say you really want some oranges, right? Like you're like, this, all I really want is some oranges. I just really need some oranges. And there's nothing wrong with you wanting oranges. You deserve to have oranges. But the problem is you keep going to apple trees. And you're going to the apple trees, and the apple trees won't give you oranges. They give you apples, they give you leaves, they give you all these multicolored things, but they give you everything that what you're asking for. So where is the problem? Is the problem with what you're asking for? No. Is the problem with the fact that you're asking in the first place? No. What you're asking for is great. Is you deserve it. You're worth it. And what you're asking for is not too much, but you're going to the wrong source. And you're getting more and more frustrated, and it's building this belief in your world that oranges just aren't available. They're just not available for me. But you got to get out of the apple orchard, and you got to get around people, relationships, orange trees that are actually primed to give you what you need, primed to give you what you want. And until you do that, then you're going to keep having this frustration, not because your asks are unfulfillable, right? And also that depletes you. It makes you depressed. It makes you resentful. It makes it harder so that when you are around orange trees, now you're like, oh, here you are now. I bet the fruit ain't even gonna be that good. And I don't even want oranges now. Like, okay, like I've been asking for oranges for all these years. I've been over here berry picking and doing everything else. Now that this is here, I don't even trust it. So now you have full access to orange trees in front of you that are like blooming in front of you. And you're like, I don't trust it, I don't want it, which is also what happens for those of us who've gone through a lot of relationship traumas and everything else. We have access to people who want to love us, and we don't know how to receive it. We don't know how to take from it. So I asked them to resend me a URL link for scheduling meetings with my advisor at link. I asked for 2 minutes after it was provided. Have I received a link? No. Everyone said that was what posted works. This is a small example of my work relationships with people, but I've been attuned to this by family. My mom primarily, the stuff stuck back in my face. I don't ask for much. So here's what I'm going to make up about this. You didn't ask me, but well, yes, you did. I mean, putting it here. You're sharing this, so you did ask, or you're presenting it as your example. Um, my two thoughts, and I'll just say this and move on because I don't know if you're still here and you did not ask me a follow-up question, but you shared your experience. My first thought is there's such a thing as toxic work environments, and um, we can get really mad at people being toxic and unhealthy and like get like really stuck into like how it should be, or we can practice radical acceptance and see people for who they are and where they are. And when we practice radical acceptance that this is how it is, and no amount of like me like being mad about it or like griping about it is going to change it. And if anything, me being mad about it and griping about it is bringing me down, like it's bringing my stress level up, it's affecting my health, it's affecting my ability to sleep. I go home, I can't even unwind because I'm so focused on how messed up all these people are. I'm just angry about it all the time. Like it like literally affects me. I can't even leave it at work all the time because it gets at me, right? But when I radically accept that this is how it is, now the power, and when I do that, the power is in their hands to mess up my whole day by being incompetent at their jobs. But when I radically accept and I see things for where they are, It brings the power back to myself. So now I get to choose. I knew that you were going to fuck up and not give me the link because that's what you always do. So I'm able to like plan ahead. I'm able to, when you intentionally try to sabotage me, I already knew that this was going to happen. So I already have myself mentally like prepared for it. And also, I get to decide, is this the type of environment that I want to be in? Um, is it time for me to move around? Right? All workplaces are going to have their drama, their trauma, their like whatever. But is this the type of environment that I can or want to commit to for the next for 40 hours a week for my mental health? So that's one. And then the other thought that I had is, if your family, your mom especially, did these type of things to you too, it makes things that are already triggering and things that are already hurtful and disrespectful, to you as a colleague and just you as a person, and makes what's already wrong 10 times more hurtful and 10 times more deeper, because it connects to deeper ways that you've been betrayed and hurt and made fun of and manipulated and abandoned before, right? And so it cuts deeper. So even more reason why, you know, if you're able to, I know as no, there's job jobs, especially like, tech fields and other places, like, job availability varies across fields, right? And so it's not like, well, just get another job, but like just putting it there that, as time goes on, if it is possible eventually for you to move, for that to be possibly something that you do, versus being in an environment that re-triggers your trauma all day, every day. Or get work with somebody to help you work through it. Get someone, a therapist, a coach, I'm available. Get someone who can help you with skills and to talk through this stuff to where these other people don't have so much power over you. And that's not again, I hope that I'm making it clear that I'm not negating how hurtful and wrong and disrespectful and dishonoring and humiliating this stuff is when this happens. And I want you and anyone else who's listening to be able to be at a place when people are doing these things to you, we can feel our feelings, the appropriate anger and rage that comes with it, because someone is trying to like take respect, they're trying to like affect my job. There's that. And I want you to be able to recover from it. I want you to not get stuck in the dark place. I want you to be able to do both. Okay. Um, So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to end. I'm looking at the clock, y'all. I used to be just like that. Oh my God, disgusting to think about. That's true. If you work at a job with personal professional development, try to see if you can use their funds to fund a course. That's what I did in the past. Yeah, absolutely. I've had several people who have used their work funding, um, to to work to work with me. So especially like, yeah, personal development, like self development, like you're working on self esteem, moving forward, that kind of thing. I'm not. You're going to have to go into your policies and procedures and look at the languaging. I'm not going to be able to help you with the languaging to get your boss to approve it. But that is very common. That has happened a lot of times that women have used their professional development to invest in the recovery school program. I needed to hear this today. Awesome. Radical acceptance. Yep, yep, yep. Okay. All right. So that is it, y'all. We did two today, but we went long today. So hopefully this was helpful to you. For those of you just joining, we talked about, I guess, two things that are holding you back when you're trying to work through love addiction and getting out of unavailable relationships. And so you're aware that you're in addictive relationships. You're aware that you're in trauma bonded relationships, and you're trying to make room. You're trying to move forward, but you keep getting stuck. We talked about that. So if you're just joining, hit that replay, the replay on Instagram, the replay on Facebook, the replay on YouTube. And again, for those of you who've been wanting to work together, if you have any questions about the program or anything like that, feel free to email us. Emailing is probably better than DMing because my assistant is more in the DMs than I am. And of course, she can answer your questions, but email is easier to like type things out versus like being on your thumbs and everything. So, but I would love to work with you. You can go to the recoveryschool.com. And I'm actually about to go and chat with my recovery school students right now to go deeper into all these scenarios, coach them through it, and I would love for you to be that person. So that's it for tonight. I will see y'all next time, and y'all have a good one. Bye. Bye bye, y'all.